I'm planning a trip, and I invite you to come along. I live about 45 miles north of Atlanta, and I want to go to about 35 miles west of Chicago. In my RV-12, if there's no wind, I can do this trip in 4.5 hours maybe. With a tailwind, I can probably do it in 4 hours flat. With a headwind, well, who knows? Could be a lot longer. I'm going to plan to do the trip in 2 legs. First, from my home airport to southern Indiana. This leg is a little over the halfway point. I picked the airport because it's named after astronaut Gus Grissom, one of the original Mercury 7. Maybe they'll have some NASA memorabilia there. Well, we'll see. The second leg is straight into the Chicago area, taking pains to be underneath the Bravo airspace for the last leg into DuPage Airport. I've wanted to make this flight for some time now, but the weekend weather has been poor, either at my end or at the Chicago end. I want to see my granddaughter. She's 19 months old now, and it's been well over a year since I saw her last. ForeFlight says 2.5 hours for leg 1. I need to stay low at 3,000 feet because of clouds. I'm going to share some in-flight video, starting with the circled area just north of Chattanooga. Looking out, you can see it's a bit overcast with cloud bottoms around 4,000 feet or so. And where would power lines lead to? Well, a power plant, of course. Deeper into Tennessee now, I come across this interesting building. Nothing around it for miles. Turns out to be a hospital. Still in Tennessee, we come across Cookeville now. Notice the legend. It says, "Caution, rapidly rising terrain." Now that's going to play a role in my trip home days later. Here, you can see one of Tennessee's most important exports, oxygen. Hundreds of square miles of trees. And with me flying just 2,000 feet above, I'm constantly on the lookout for openings to land if I need to. How are we doing so far? Well, we picked up a slight headwind, but we're still doing 114 knots in ground speed. I can live with that. And now after a little over an hour's of flight time, we're in southern Kentucky. The terrain is different here with fewer trees and more fields. And look, we're in the area of Mammoth Cave, and I want to come back here sometime and go there. After 2.5 hours of flight time, we arrive at Virgil Grissom Municipal. They have a plaque, a wall, and a photo of the homeboy. Gas is reasonable here, and Ted helps me pump it at the self-serve. I take on 12 gallons and get ready to keep going. By the way, further up north of Kokomo, they have Grissom ARB, which has a good-sized aviation museum and good eats nearby. I'm going to stop there at a later date. For now, I just want to keep trucking to Chicago. Here's ForeFlight next leg, 200 miles and 2 hours more. Low clouds have lifted, so now we can climb to 4,500 feet for the rest of the flight. Crossing over Bloomington, Indiana, I contact the tower, and even though I'm above their control zone, I get a transponder code and a short flight watch while I pass overhead. So far, I haven't seen another airplane in the sky this trip. Indiana looks way different than Kentucky did. Well, now we've picked up a 33-knot headwind, and we slowed considerably. This leg is going to be more than 2 hours. On the map, just west of Indianapolis, you see a hatched area with windmills. This is one of the biggest windmill farms in America. It kind of makes sense to have these windmills here because the land is flat and nothing stops the wind. According to Wikipedia, there's over 600 turbines in this wind farm. Arriving in the Chicago area, this is my plan. I need to fly east of the Class Delta airspace at Lewis University and west of the Class Charlie airspace at Midway. I fly direct to LL22, a small community-based air park and I maintain 1,800 feet to remain below the floor of the Class Bravo. Landing at DuPage Airport, this is the FBO. I was treated like a king there, even though I was just a two-seat gnat compared to the biz jets on the ramp. That's a Cirrus parked there behind the big boy. And me? Well, I'm that little bug over the heads of those two guys standing by the Diamond Jet. Let me give you the nickel tour inside. This here, well, this is the pilot's lounge. Conference room and a kitchen. Coffee, anyone? How about a game room to pass away the hours? So let's sum up the trip. What could have been as fast as 4 hours, in fact, turned out to be nearly 6 due to unfavorable winds. Still, I'm happy to have gotten here on just 23 gallons of 100 OLED. The stats at the top are actual figures. The ones below are estimates. If I had taken the Tesla, there'd be quite a difference in time spent. My wife's car would have been a bit quicker but more expensive. By car, it most likely would have been a 2-day ride. Thank you, RV-12. The trip up was relatively easy. The trip back several days later was, well, not so easy. Stay tuned to this channel and see why. See you then.